I'll welcome the chief and I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, David. I really appreciate that. And it is my honor and pleasure to be able to once again present to Student Senate. I am going to share my screen. I have just a very brief presentation that I wanted to make to the group, and then I will make sure to leave plenty of time for questions and answers as well. All right, so my presentation that I wanted to provide today is talking a little bit about the efforts of the Bradley University Police Department in regards to diversity and inclusion. This has been a commitment of ours for quite some time, and I wanted to make sure that we essentially told our story about some of the things that we're doing within our police department. And while this is a pretty inclusive list, there certainly is the potential here that I may have missed one or two. There's a lot of information. I'm not going to spend necessarily a ton of time on every single point, but I'm happy to dive into it deeper if anybody has questions about that. And we can certainly do that outside of this group meeting as well. So the very first thing that really leads the entire conversation within the police department is our mission statement, vision statement, and core values. So the University Police Department, a number of years back, adopted our own mission statement, vision statement, core values. And that's, they work in conjunction with the university's mission statement, vision statement, and core values. And so these are what they are. Really, when we talk about diversity and inclusion and equity and treating people the right way, it is absolutely reflected in every aspect of our core values, as well as our mission and vision statement as well. The ones I would like to highlight here just for the group are when we talk a little bit about integrity, professionalism, excellence, civility, and then customer service. And everything that our department does, we're a customer service oriented type of profession, and we want to make sure that we are leaving people better than when we found them. Some other things that we do is we provide and participate in all sorts of statistical data. So in the state, and again, I offer this because I realized in talking with people, if you're not a police officer, you probably have absolutely no idea that police departments in Illinois do these types of things. And some of these are required by law, some of them are voluntary. So we do participate in the state of Illinois traffic stop data information. And so any traffic stop conducted by a police officer in the state of Illinois, you have to fill out statistical information. So I know sometimes, again, people don't necessarily understand what a police officer does or when they do it. But I cannot simply be driving down the street, see Emma and say, hey, I want to say hi to Emma, and decide I'm going to turn on my lights and sirens and pull Emma over. If I do that, I have to fill out all sorts of paperwork indicating the traffic stop, the nature of the traffic stop, as well as the disposition of that traffic stop. So all of that information is logged and recorded. Same thing with pedestrian stops. A couple of years back, Illinois passed a law that said that if you stop a pedestrian and you pat them down for any reason, essentially touch them, you have to provide certain information back to the state of Illinois. And you also have to provide receipts to that person. So again, Bradley Police Department participates in all of those. There is now a FBI National Use of Force database that's voluntary, something that Bradley participates in as well. And so we've uploaded our data going backwards to the start of it to 2018. Use of cameras. So we don't have body cameras within the University Police Department, but we do have other cameras. So all of our vehicles have in-car video. And that in-car video includes pre-light activation. So anytime a police officer turns on his lights, that camera automatically starts working, but it also records the first 30 seconds before they turned on those lights. So again, we can see what happened right before those lights came on. Our police officers started carrying tasers probably 2 years ago at this point. the tasers are also equipped with cameras on them, high quality, uh, high definition style cameras. So anytime an officer draws his taser and turns that taser on, there's going to be video of that as well. And then we also have dispatch and real time monitoring of CCTV. So we have a number of cameras around campus and near campus that if our officer goes out on some sort of an incident, the dispatchers are going to be monitoring that real time, and they're also going to be moving that camera there so that we can really get a view of what exactly is happening at that particular incident. We have a contemporary use of force policy within the police department. It follows the best practices as outlined by the IACP. It contains de-escalation focuses, and we have verbal warnings are required in there. It contains an officer override. So again, following the horrific death of George Floyd, there was a lot of call for police departments to include a number of these types of steps. And so our policy does that, did it before and continues to do it afterwards. We have a supervisor review of all required use of force. And this is really important. We all watch TV and you see cop shows and they show, somebody tackling a suspect for whatever particular reason. For a police officer to do that, at least a Bradley University police officer, if that were to happen, that police officer needs to write a detailed police report. At that point, an independent supervisor, meaning somebody that wasn't there, needs to then look at that and write an assessment and determine whether or not that use of force was within policy. Once that's done, that report is then given to another supervisor, our captain, who then goes through and identifies and makes sure that he concurs with that. If there's serious injury, that assessment would then come to me as well. So there's a number of supervisor steps that are involved for every single use of force. There is highly unlikely that an officer could use force without any sort of documentation. In the event of deadly force, there's an outside agency review and investigation that would occur. So, if a university police officer would not be the investigating agency for us, we would bring in the Illinois State Police. We added a number of less lethal options, such as expandable batons and tasers, to our force option continuums, which is really important. So it gives us other alternatives than simply deadly force. And then we also have certified now compliance with the Department of Justice's standards for certification on use of force and safe policing for communities. So that's an assessment practice that agencies could voluntarily go through. And we went through that. We get no benefit out of it. There's some agencies that do that to receive grant funding, but we're excluded from those grants. So we did that just for the sake of going through and doing that and receiving that certification. Our officers are really well trained and undergo a lot more training than most police officers in the state of Illinois. And I would put them up against any other police agency easily in the state of Illinois and say that we certainly far exceed what the minimum standards are. And just conversations I have with other police chiefs, we really are in the upper echelon of quantity of training that we provide. All my police officers do receive a 40-hour state of Illinois crisis intervention team training, which is really important. That's really how to interact with people when they go through a mental health crisis. And it provides them with training and resources. And so all of my police officers are trained in that. We're one of the few departments that would have that across the board mandated for every one of our police officers. Other initiatives that we've done, we really have gone out of our way to try and build relationships with students and try to do that in every way that we can. So it starts with new student orientation. And so if you're a freshman this year, I feel bad for you. You didn't really get the full feature of the University Police Department. For all the sophomores, juniors, and seniors, you can attest to having to come into a room and most likely had to sit through a 45 presentation by me talking about the University Police Department. So again, build those relationships right from the beginning. You know, we all lived in communities before we came to Bradley University, and there's probably not too many of you that had to sit through some sort of orientation to your local police department. So again, one of the things that we do that's really important for us. One of our newest initiatives is adopt an organization, where we get out and build relationships with student organizations. This has not gone particularly well for us. COVID has really thrown a monkey wrench into this, but nonetheless, we continue to try and push forward with it, and to build relationships with the student organizations, and assign officers to them. Coffee with a Cop is one of our most fun, entertaining events that we do. And so I think most of you have probably seen that, where we hand out coffee and donuts, because not because cops like donuts, because everybody likes donuts. But we do that particular event, and that's a lot of fun. Again, just ways to build interactions between police officers and the community. And then one of the ones I'm most proud of is our Student Safety Advisory Committee. Peter Atman, I know I saw him earlier. He sits on that, as does AJ. They're representatives to our Student Safety Advisory Committee. It meets a couple times a semester. Usually, when it's not COVID, we buy lunch for people. And it's just a really fun student advisory committee. That's where the concept of the Hilltop Safety Cruiser came from. So, you know, there's obviously some value in input, and we take that very, very seriously. So, other things that we do, we are moving toward accreditation for the police department. So, in accreditation, like a university is accredited, so can police departments. And really, for police departments, all it really means is that we're out there following best standards, best practices, and making sure that our policies are up to date and that we're actually following those policies. So we are currently undergoing assessment by two different agencies, or beginning that process. We're not into the assessment phase of it, but we've started the paperwork with it, through an international association that focuses in on best practices for university law enforcement, which is different than municipal law enforcement. So making sure that we get that key aspect of it. And then also the Illinois Police Chiefs Association, which makes sure that we're meeting the state standards and best practices for law enforcement in the state of Illinois. Other things that we did back in 2018, we signed on to the 10 shared principles, which is kind of the byproduct of meetings between the NAACP and the Illinois Police Chiefs Association. And I had the privilege to get to go and attend some of those initial working group meetings. And really, all it boils down to is that we agreed to really just 10 shared principles that are designed to build trust between law enforcement and communities of color. And so we adopted that back in June of 2018. I think the Illinois State Police was one of the last agencies that's signed on, and they did that back in the last couple of months. So there's a lot of agencies that have now decided to go ahead and adopt that, but we were early adopters of that. We created two different appearance policies that are really important to me. And so the first one is we removed race from our suspect descriptions when we issue out safety alerts. And this is, I have a very personal story with this that I'm not going to share now just for the sake of time. But it impacted me greatly many years before I came to Bradley. And so this was one of the first things that I did. But we take out race from that identifier because you know, it unnecessarily targets students of color if the suspect description is something vague and generic, like a black male 18 to 22 years old wearing dark colored clothing, right? That's probably every one of our male students on campus that's African American. And so it's just unfair. And so we don't do that unless there's some sort of unique identifier. At the end of the day, a description like that provides absolutely no value to anyone, and it just simply reinforces negative stereotypes. And then the second policy is one that we added this summer. You know, I wish I could say that this was an unnecessary policy, but we've had this call since I've been here, and that's really sad. In 2020 to have received a complaint like this, yet we did. And so we've developed a policy that now simply says that we will not dispatch an officer to respond to a call based solely on someone's skin color, and that's the type of call that we had received in the past. And so we're not going to do that. We're going to elicit information from people. We've trained our dispatchers to make sure that we are asking appropriate questions, that what is a person doing that makes them suspicious. And we're not going to dispatch it solely on race. And with that, I am happy to entertain any questions. It certainly doesn't have to be on this particular topic, but any questions or concerns that anyone might have on any particular topic.
Alrighty, so what we are going to do is I'm going to open an initial 10-minute questioning period, which you'll submit the questions to me either in the chat or privately. Um, and so I'm hoping everybody just make sure that your questions are clear and concise. That'll help clear up any confusion if about questions being answered. Um, so I'll give you just a brief moment to submit those questions, and then we will go from there. Okay, one of the first questions here says, what is the diversity makeup of the department, including gender identity?
That is a very good question. I do not have those demographics readily available. I can tell you that we have, and we just had some turnover within the police department. So currently, we have one female officer, one female sworn officer, and then we have two African American male police officers. But I can't give you percentages offhand.
Great, thank you. Are we short police officers now that Officer Morales has departed? Is it just one officer down, or have there been more than one departure from the department?
We've had a number of officers depart the police department, which is not necessarily uncommon for us to have officers leave the University Police Department and move on to other agencies. We are not necessarily short police officers, so we have the way that we staff our officers is we have minimum staffing, so we have a certain number of officers that have to be on duty at different times of the day and different days of the week, and we continue to maintain that number, that threshold. So we're not under that in any way.
Great, thank you. A lighting audit was done last year about the dark spots on campus. Has anything come about from that audit?
So some of that information was provided to the city council person. Those were city related lights, not necessarily on campus lights, unless I've got my audit incorrect here is which one we're referring to, but the city lighting, that information was uploaded and provided to the city council person. I do know that over the summer, I believe, I'm pretty sure it was the summer, the city had upgraded the lighting in the area from the regular incandescent street lighting to LED street lights, which has dramatically improved the street lights in general. So I don't know that every one of them was done, but I can tell you that the major areas were done.
Great, thank you. What are the challenges with policing a campus during COVID?
It has been interesting. For us, it's been slow and relatively boring, and there's not a lot of parties, there's not a lot of activity. Crime has been down dramatically in every single category except for domestic violence related incidents, which is up quite a bit, but otherwise every other crime category is down considerably. So it's been very different. That's for sure. And certainly we miss the student activities, the late night BUs, and the dances that we have on campus or concerts that we had on campus. It's just driving down the street now down Fredonia is not the same as what it was a year ago.
Thank you. Could you explain the adopt an organization that you kind of had previously talked about?
Yeah, so adopt an organization. The idea behind this was just to build relationships with different organizations and different residence halls on campus. So we assigned, we didn't assign officers. We let officers, we identified what major organizations were out there on campus, and we allowed the officers to pick and choose which of them they wanted to try and build relationships with. And then they would reach out to those different student organizations or different residence halls in an attempt to build relationships and answer questions, come to meetings, however it was that we'd be able to engage. So we, like I said, we tried to pick some of what we consider to be the major student organizations. So if anyone has a student organization and did not feel like they received an invite from the University Police Department and they would like an invitation from the police department, please reach out to me, and I would be happy to have somebody, one of my officers, engage with that student group.
Great, thank you. What are the expectations for your staff in wearing masks?
My officers are required to wear a mask like every other employee or student while they're on campus. We do not require our police officers to wear their masks in their vehicle if they're in their vehicle alone. So, if they're driving through campus, it's not necessary for them to wear their mask. But essentially, if they're out on the quad, outside a building, inside a building, they're supposed to wear their mask. And I know this every now and again comes up, but campus town is not part of the campus proper. So we don't necessarily wear them in the parking lot, but we wear them in the office.
Great, thank you. Could you talk in a little more detail about crisis intervention training? And does BUPD have any relation with the counseling services?
Yeah, so we have a couple different avenues in which we address counseling. So the University Police Department, one of the unique aspects of us is that when somebody calls for the police department, we don't first identify whether or not they're a Bradley student or they're a community member, and so we respond to incidents that may be Bradley related or they might not be Bradley related. And so we have to make sure that we're able to respond to both. And so we have really good relationships with the counseling center and direct lines of communication. And we have a process that we work through anytime we have a student involved in a mental health crisis, where we engage the counseling center in, I'd say 98, 99% of the time in those types of incidents. But then we also have a partnership, a really unique partnership in resource here in Peoria County. And there's an organization that's funded through the county themselves. That's an emergency response team. And we're able to reach out to that particular team and they will respond to calls for service. And so there are counselors that have a vehicle and they'll, you can call and request them and they'll come out and help interact with people and help them through their crisis, and they can transform to the hospital or other services if they need shelter resources, something like that. They have great relationships. And so we have partnerships with both of those groups. And then as far as the crisis intervention team training itself, that's a 40-hour class that we put our officers through. It's state certified and gets into a lot of aspects of mental health, but then it's also scenario based as well. So the officers have to do some role playing with professional actors who do a really good job of acting through cases of people that are going through some sort of mental health crisis. And the officer has to assess that and essentially provide resources to that particular individual.
Great, thank you. We've got about 2 more minutes left in the initial questioning period. If there are any questions, please put them in the chat.
My lights went off in the office, so we have we have some high tech equipment over here at the police department. If you don't move enough, your lights go off. So sorry about that. Well, David, I guess while we have a lull, I just want to say thank you very much for the invitation. Thank you for doing your MC here. You did a great job with facilitating the questions. So certainly you can tell that this is not your first Zoom experience. So thank you so much. Unless anybody had anything else to say, I really appreciate the invitation, and would welcome an opportunity to come back in the future.
We do have one quick last question here. It says, do you work with the Peoria Center for Prevention of Abuse as well?
We do. We have a very strong relationship there. Some of you may know that I graduated from Bradley with my master's degree a couple of years ago, and that was actually the group and organization that I worked very closely with as part of my master's program, is the Center for Prevention of Abuse. So we partner with them. In the month of April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month, so our officers will wear teal patches on the uniforms, and so you will see us doing that. And that is in big time partnership with the Center for Prevention of Abuse. So really great people over there. They have an excellent executive director as well.
Another one came in just here. What is your average number of arrests and or interactions with the community?
We have very few arrests within the police department. Part of that is our operating philosophy that we transitioned back when I hired in. And so when I hired in, we were making a lot of arrests, including a lot of students. And so we changed that model to really look at voluntary cooperation. I get a commitment report, which is slightly different than the way that you asked the question. But a commitment report is the number of people that we would transport to the county jail. And so I get that on a monthly basis. And it is a very rare occurrence if we have more than 3 people that would be transported in any particular month out to the county jail. So a lot of ours are referrals. A lot of them are warnings. We like to refer the student conduct for student conduct related cases. And we like to refer for if it's a community member, so not a Bradley student, faculty, staff, we would prefer to refer those individuals into whatever appropriate services would be in the community rather than arresting.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Chief, for joining us. Yes, definitely stay warm and be safe. I went to go grab lunch and it was quite nippy out there. So stay warm, be safe, and thanks for stopping by and speaking with us.
Thank you.
Take care. All right, I'm going to go back and share my screen here and move right along. Are there any questions or concerns about last week's minutes? Okay, seeing none, we'll move directly into department reports, starting with academic affairs.
All right, so just moving on from last week, Casey went ahead with the PR campaign about lockdown browsers, and she sent that information to PR. They received that. That's also in their report. Cream is working to email Jack Gorman again about webcams for professors. Ren's in charge of our mental health initiative, and so she has reached out to Active Minds on campus, and we're figuring out something to do with them. And overall, all of academic affairs right now is working on a mental health tips compilation that will then pass on to PR with different tips for how to improve mental health in regards to academic affairs in general, in regards to student lives. That's all.
Great, thank you. We're going to jump down to campus safety and community relations.
All right, so first, I just want to apologize for my absence last week. I had an unexpected family emergency that kept me away from the meeting. So going into my report, firstly, we completed an infographic that sort of celebrated the end of quarantine and in the hopes of reopening soon, sort of a celebratory thing. We've made progress with both the conversation of feminine care products being provided in dorms and the location and availability of safety poles on campus that Chief was sort of alluding to. Both of these conversations are still ongoing. For this week, we will hope to further along both of these incentives, and we'll keep everyone updated on those. And then also, side note, for those registered to vote here in Peoria, the election for mayor is coming up soon. So do your research and plan on voting.
Great, thank you. Jumping down to internal affairs. Internal affairs is the chairperson here. Oh, Karen, are you here?
Yes, I'm so sorry. I didn't have my volume up for a second. I got muted. Okay. So my report. So bylaws have been looked over by my committee. Today, Emma and Brandy are going to come into our committee or our committee meeting, and we are going to be able to just kind of go over all the suggestions we made, see if they have any more suggestions, and kind of move forward with the update process. Also, with elections coming up, our mandatory election meetings are in 2 weeks. So guys, look out for that. If you are interested in running, make sure you attend this mandatory meeting in order to kind of get to know a little bit more about the elections. And in order to run, you do have to attend at least one meeting. Also, we created a pre-recorded slideshow on general elections. Well, not general elections, but on the spring elections kind of in general. I believe they're going to be posted on social media. So if you or a friend is interested in running, but you're not really sure what it's about, what the process is, make sure to check that out to kind of get a little information. And later in new business, we're going to be voting for a new DI chairperson.
Great, thank you. Moving on to public relations.
So for this week, we'll be posting some statements we obtained from alumni and organization leaders on Black History Month. The posters are about done, and they were done by Himal, and those will be going out this week. For the general elections info, as an alternative to hosting an actual meeting, Karen, as you already said, recorded a slideshow for the general elections information, and this way, like, it can be watched anytime, like, you're free and you have the time to. And lastly, for the lockdown browsers, we did receive the email from Casey Walsh from the Academic Affairs Committee. And so for this week, we will also be making posters for that and, streamline that information and just put it out there.
Great, thank you. Okay, all the executive body officers, we do not have any reports, so we are just going to go jump right down to Advisor Coy.
Sorry, I have a new setup and it was all kind of messed up. So I wanted to give you guys an update on how we're doing with event processing. So just as an example, over the weekend, we had over 60 events sponsored by student organizations submit. We're getting back to most people within 24 hours or one business day, basically, in terms of responding and working to them. So we're doing our best to get through all those. There's people assigned at all different days. Just so you guys as Senate know, the biggest challenges have been if an organization hasn't had 2 people watch the winter bolt session, they're not eligible to book a room because it has COVID information in there. So that's normally our hang up, is we have to send them back to watch that bolt video. And the other thing is, truly with COVID and with facilities and grounds, we need 5 days in advance to book the thing. So we've been getting a lot of requests. I was in there working on them today. People are submitting things today for Thursday, and we can't have that quick of a turnaround because of staffing within the university we need to do. The other thing, just because we had a interaction with event services today, just let you know, we're making departments do this too regarding meetings or anything else of that. So it's staff are being held to the same accountabilities and things like that if they're wanting to be doing programming or anything else, and professors as well. Some other clarifying things that I wanted to just share is that Hayden Clark Alumni Center is completely shut down for the semester. And the only exception that's really been made as of this point has been for admissions visit days in there, just because there's not really any other spaces available that they can designate. And also it's partially closed out because they had to bring in special sound system because the sound system there is on the fritz. So you can't change around the setup of the room with the sound system in there. So that's something that has kind of been shut off and not available to anyone on campus. The other thing I just wanted to share was with Renco. All sports are basically in season right now. We have had about 20 requests for Renco because people think it's a much bigger space. The capacity in Renco is still only 50 people that can use it, but due to volleyball, basketball, track, ROTC, and several other groups all in there, it's basically never open or available. So that's kind of where we had. And then as the other thing is, my other part of my job duties is working with ACBU right now. And so I just wanted to share that their a big event was tonight for Cody and Noel. I'm not hip enough to know whatever it is, but like they're doing a roast. And it's supposed to, if you're a fan, it's supposed to be really good, everything like that. But that's tonight at 7:30. And that is the link to it. I just share it for there because you have to fill out the link, which takes you to request to get the Zoom link to actually watch it, because it has to be like on lockdown for Bradley students only. So that's the process of going through and doing that. Otherwise, that's all my reports and updates I have for y'all.
Great, thank you. Any constituency reports?
I have one. So my name's Erin Boshek. I'm in campus affairs, but I think this would go in academic affairs. I sent an actual constituency report about it, but I had a couple questions I was hoping could be clarified. So I was talking to Hillel, the Jewish organization on campus this week, and they mentioned how finals week always has finals that occur on Saturdays, which is their day of prayer, but finals don't occur on Sundays because it's a Christian day of prayer. So my question was more, is this something that has been looked into before? And also, if we're looking for inclusivity and diversity, that Friday is also, I think, the Islamic day of prayer. So if this could be an opportunity to look into, at least for the finals week, to have that Monday through Thursday.
Great, thank you. I think that would go to the Diversity and Inclusion Committee, and that would be appropriate.
And as far as I know, it hasn't been looked into. This is a fantastic project to be working on.
Emma, this is Tom. I'll just share with the group what the university's stance has been in the past is that anyone who requests to have their final moved for religious reasons, for kind of any of those we said, is accommodated. However, I don't think that's really the heart of the matter Erin's getting to, of it not having to be a request. It's more of just the intent behind the whole thing. And is it favoritism over Christianity, over other religions? That's a bigger ball. But I do want to let you know that the process has been in place, that if it is for religious reasons or anything else, that your exam is supposed to be rescheduled and kind of moved to another day in an alternative time. But I don't think that's exactly what you were digging into. So I'll leave it with diversity and inclusion, but just so the information is out there, that's what we do.
And I also think we can all agree that finals on Saturdays is about the dumbest thing to ever exist. So,
General consensus. Alrighty, any other constituency reports? Okay. Alrighty, we have no unfinished business. However, we do have some new business. So I am going to stop sharing my screen here. And I am going to turn the floor over for about a good 30 seconds to a minute to our nominee, the student body officers. This past week conducted interviews for the chairperson of diversity and inclusion, and we have a nominee to present before the Senate. So I am now going to turn it over to Cameron Dingerson to present.
Hello, I'm Cameron Dingerson, and currently now I am a junior at-large senator who is in the Diversity and Inclusion Committee. But why I wanted to be chairperson, because I feel that there are more pressing issues that the committee has not gotten to yet. And I think that I could help bring those to attention. One of the things I would want to do as chairperson is have more outreach towards different multicultural organizations on campus so they'd have an easier gateway in order to bring issues to the committee's attention. And another thing would be diversification of mental health, because while the majority, according to 2018 statistics, the majority of people who seek mental health treatment are white peoples, and based on human geography, minorities will become the majority of population by at least farthest 2044. So if one hesitancy may be that minorities don't think that the counselor would understand their problems since they're predominantly white. So I would think to alleviate that diversification of who are mental health counselors at the university would help with that. And another thing to say more about my experience in diversity and inclusion, I'm currently an intern for the youth campaign of Dr. Rita Ali for Peoria Mayor, and she is the chair of, I think, is vice president of diversity at ICC. And with her, I have discussed numerous things regarding diversity and inclusion in Peoria, and I think through that I can offer insight into the committee thanks to what she has told me about it, her own experiences. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Wonderful. We're going to extend and open up the floor for questions. Please put a dot in the chat if you would like to ask a question, and I will call on you. Emma Hoytia.
Would you mind going into a little bit of what else you're involved in and what your time commitment will be able to be for this position?
Yes. Currently, I am in barbecue kitten improv troupe, which would meet at night, so I would have the days free without interference from that. And Bradley Scout would just be writing one article per week, or I don't even have to per week. So I can manage my time to give students Senate my utmost priority in that.
Great, thank you. Andrew.
If you gain the position, what do you think your priorities will be?
My priorities are mental health awareness, the diversification of mental health counselors and counseling services with a lot of mental health, which is a great priority of mine, which is why I asked that question to Chief Joschko about crisis intervention training. And another thing would be outreach to different multicultural clubs on campus so they can help have like an easier gateway to my committee and presenting any problems that we could rectify.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? If not, is there a motion to enter executive session to discuss the nominee before the Senate?
Motion.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Motion has been seconded. We shall now enter executive session to discuss the nominee. So that will mean that the nominee, as well as any members of the public, will exit.
And I'm going to create another room. I will open up the rooms and then no one other than public and Cameron go into it, basically. Okay, don't accept that other than Cameron. And I don't think there's any public, as far as I know.
There is public. Sam from the Scout, right?
Perfect. Is that Sam?
Samuel, I don't know how to say his last name. I'm so sorry. Their last name.
Okay. Sam, if you could go into that room, please. There we go. Okay, we're all set.
Alrighty. So if you just put a dot in the chat.
All right, and they're back.
Alrighty. Well, welcome back, Cameron and members of the public. I am very pleased to inform you that your nomination did pass the Senate, and you'll be sworn in as the next chairperson of Diversity and Inclusion. Alrighty, Karen, if you would do the honors.
Alrighty. All right, Cameron, I'm gonna say a few things and you're just gonna have to repeat after me.
Okay.
Okay, so it's I and then your name.
I, Cameron Dingerson,
Promise to uphold
promise to uphold
and represent the best interest of Bradley University,
the best interest of Bradley University,
to keep an open mind
to keep an open mind
and have the student body's interest at heart,
and have the student body's interest at heart,
uphold the values set forth by Student Senate
set forth by Student Senate
and Bradley University. Yay, you've been sworn in.
Congratulations, Cameron. All right. Let me make sure there's nothing else. Public comments. Members of the public, if you have any comments at this moment, you may now speak. No public comments. Call for announcements. Any announcements?
This probably should have been in my minutes, but the DI committee is sparse. So if you are interested in being a part of the diversity and inclusion committee, please let me know and we will move you over this week. I'm going to change my notification to that, whatever that little squeak was. I liked that. But you can move over this week if you're interested. You could also come over for just a week. If no one is interested, then we will be moving over to kind of a rotational schedule where one or two senators will go attend a DI committee meeting kind of just for 1 week, just so they can have some external ideas and things like that. So if you're interested, shoot me something in the chat and we'll move you over this week. But please consider, see what you think.
Yes, and also I would like to echo that and also say that Barbecue Kitten it has its first show of the year on Saturday night.
Great. Also, I apologize. I almost called the police, and it was quite an ordeal. So any other announcements?
Bradley's Osher Lifelong Learning Institute is putting on a talk from Drake University's former judge Mark Bennett on Thursday the 18th at 12 p.m.
Great. Any other announcements?
So sorry, Andrew, can you repeat the name of that org again on the 18th of February?
Osher's Lifelong Learning Institute.
Sounds beautiful. Can you direct message me that, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
Brandy. Okay, any other announcements?
The spring job and internship fair is happening on the 23rd. I forget the time, but I think it's like at 11 to 3 p.m. Go on the Smith Career Center's site to like sign up for it.
Alrighty, any other announcements? Okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Motion has been seconded. We stand adjourned at 5:56 p.m.
Oh, that's so funny. It says that Josie is still here. Her Wi-Fi dropped out, so she's not actually here.